On this episode of Missouri Life, we're in Chariton County, where we meet a baseball player whose natural abilities and work ethic took him to the major leagues. Visit a so crafty business that'll leave you in stitches. And discover Missouri's natural beauty with a hunter turned photographer. All that and more coming up next on Missouri Life. Production support is provided by Missouri Life magazine and by viewers like you. Thank you. Welcome to another episode of Missouri Life. I'm your host, Meredith Haynes. Thanks so much for joining us on this journey of discovery. You say pecan, I say pecan. No matter how you say it, of all the tree nuts grown in the state of Missouri, the pecan reigns supreme here in Chariton County. Brunswick was named the pecan capital of Missouri by State Representative Norwood Creason in a state proclamation back in 1972. Let's begin our journey of discovery and find out what makes Chariton County proud. We're sitting here today with Janet Weaver. She's the president of the Chariton County Heritage Tours. Let's talk about the Salisbury Historic District a little bit.
Okay. I became apparent that there were a number of houses over in Salisbury that would qualify for probably the historic register, and they all happened to be in kind of a location that was pretty close together. So there was some driving force over there to get these people on the historic register and to recognize the fact that these houses were something special. The Hammock House, that one was built in 1890, and the man that built its name was William Hammock. He came here from Virginia in 1851 with his mother. And the year his mother died, I don't know if there's any relation between this or not, but the year his mother died, he got married. In the next 14 years, they had 6 daughters, no sons, and she died at age 32 in childbirth. And so he was left a widower with 6 girls.
And he lived at the Salisbury Inn with the 6 daughters until they got this house built. When he built the house, Judge Salisbury's house protruded over into this yard.
And so he agreed to move those rooms, get them taken away from the house, and move to another part of town so that Hammock had enough space to build the house of his dreams. If you notice on the front of the Hammock House, there's H's in the brick on the front porch. So fortunately, a family named Hooper bought it. So you had Hammock, Hooper, and their daughter Eula was the one that married Dr. Hawkins.
And then in 1962 we bought the house, so we are the 3rd family in the house. I just got the new roof on. We got that all done and replaced it with, it's a smaller diamond, but I still have the diamond shape on the roof. The ridge row is the original ridge row up there. Of course it's tin, and there was a piece missing off of it. And so we do happen to have a master welder in town, and he built me a new one out of aluminum that matches the roof. I've tried to keep it inside and outside pretty much as it was.
There are a couple other houses that have some special meaning for the county. Let's talk about those.
Well, the house that would be north of the Hammock House belonged to Lucius Salisbury's daughter, Lizzie Tyndall. Across the street's the Brummel House.
We are the 3rd owners of this 120-year-old house, and so it's just been one owner between us and the Brummels. Dr. Brummel was an MD, he was like an old country doctor that would go from house to house and treat people. The house was built in 1897, and Dr. Brummel and his wife lived here and their 2 sons.
It was the first house in Salisbury to have a coal furnace, and it was the 3rd house in Salisbury to have electric lights. And the house, upon its completion, had cost $2,500.
We did do some renovations. We didn't move any walls. It's pretty much the same floor print of what the house was when it was built.
It is available to have groups in, catered meals, that kind of thing. I've been in it several times in that capacity. The last time was when my high school class had their 50th class reunion.
We have had times where they've been here for memorials or graduations, baby showers. We actually had a wedding here. It was a little tight, but we had a wedding here. We've had wedding receptions in the front yard. It's just been a fun house, and I think that's what's important with the house. It just needs to be enjoyed. And then we talked about a lady that had come here. She had cancer, and her family wanted to spend the last holiday with her, so they celebrated Christmas here. We had it decorated for Christmas, had the trees up and everything else, so I think they appreciated that. And so it's just a house that needs to be enjoyed, and I think it's enjoyed by the entire community.
How is it for those who have known the history and have been around? What is it like to see these houses brought back to life, to their restoration?
It's wonderful. I love to see houses that are restored, and I love to see houses, if they're not restored, that are kept up. I really like that. You know, it's brings my heart, you know, a good feeling to see that happen.
Placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 2002, this is nearly all that remains of the Dalton Vocational School. A student of Booker T. Washington and an alumni of the Tuskegee Institute, Nathaniel C. Bruce opened this school in 1907. For nearly 50 years, thousands of African Americans studied agriculture, industrial arts, and home economics here. Only 2 years after the Supreme Court ordered the desegregation of public schools did the Dalton Vocational School close. It was 1956.
So Sweet Quilt Shop is a business that's family owned, and we sell fabric, and we like to provide lots of inspiration. So when you walk in our door, not only will you love the fabric, but you'll like what you see on the walls. I've been a quilter for a little over 15 years, and I'm a retired nurse. So when I retired early in life, I got the antsy to do something else, you know, as they call the second career. So I'd always talked about having a quilt shop someday when I retired. So I opened the quilt shop, and it just happened that my daughter had just had new babies at home, and so she's a school teacher by trade. And pretty soon she was helping me with the books, and then she was quilting, and now she's in here working full-time.
You know, I really liked being a teacher, and I've considered going back several times, but it's hard for me to leave the family part of the business. I enjoy working with Mom, and it's really just created a great friendship with her and I. So sometimes there's this line between her being my friend and being my mom. So that's, you know, that's always growing too, and we really have a good relationship, and I enjoy coming to work and spending time with her. You know, it'd be hard to leave that. I really enjoy the family part of the business.
It's very rewarding to have your family involved, I think, in whatever you do, whether you're a farmer or a painter, construction worker, whatever. If you can bring your family in, it just seems like every day's it's a wonderful thing. My granddaughter works now. She is all of 10, but she loves to come in and she scans the fabric, and she's you know, already learning the social skills of working a business, and that's great too.
The town has, you know, just been really excited about us coming, and you know, initially it was like, you're doing what? You're building a quilt shop in Brunswick, but you know, in time it's really grown and helped the community. So that's been really nice.
Oh, Brunswick as a whole has been very inviting. It's actually a brand new building. We built it, there was an old store here that had, the roof had already caved in when we bought the land. And so we had a picture from a shop down in Arkansas that I really liked the look of the old building. And I said, let's see if we can replicate this and make it look like it belongs here. And so that's basically what we took to an architect, and he drawed a plan out, and we went from there. And so we've been here a little over 9 years. What I kept hearing from the day I opened is, I don't have enough time to sew on what I've already got. I heard it over and over and over. So I started on my husband pretty early. I know we just built the quilt shop, but I really think we need a retreat center. And he didn't even know what a retreat center was, but I explained that to him pretty quickly. And when that opened, it really has boosted our business, because ladies now come and stay 3 or 4 days at a time, and they'll travel. So we get a lot of ladies from St. Louis, Columbia, a lot of ladies from Kansas City, Iowa, Nebraska. And so they'll make this a destination. And they're all quilters. I only rent to quilters, and we're booking out 3 years in advance now. So it is a wonderful addition to our shop. We have just built a little cottage right outside of town. We're calling that the Quilter's Nest. So, because what we have found with the retreat center for 3 years is we mandate they rent 5 rooms before we can open the facility up. So that's basically 10 ladies, two to a room. There's twin beds in each room. So by building the cottage, this will go for the smaller groups, because we have had to turn, a group of sisters away that's only 6 of them. So the cottage will sleep up to 8, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. Yeah, that's what the future holds. We're going to have another place for quilters to come in and stay for 2 or 3 days at a time.
Located between Rothville and Minden is a tract of land that was once the childhood home of Laura Ingalls Wilder. Her father, Charles, bought the land in May of 1868 and moved his young family here from the big woods in Wisconsin. Shortly after Laura's 2nd birthday, the Ingalls moved to Kansas. Lloyd Vernon Kennedy was a Major League Baseball player who spent 12 seasons in the majors. A natural athlete, Vernon also found success in track and field and football. While attending Central Missouri State Teachers College, he made the MIAA All-Conference team in football 3 times, 4 times in track, and was a 1927 All-American in track and field. That same year, he also earned the title America's Greatest All-Around College Athlete by winning the Penn Relays Classic Decathlon.
He lived in Minden all of his life, and the only time he was ever away was when he was playing baseball or going to school. His parents were not wealthy. His dad was pretty much a day laborer most of his life. My dad and his brother were only 11 months apart, so they grew up almost like twins. That was Bill and Vernon. My dad worked when as he grew up. One of the things that he did was he delivered ice. And at that time, you delivered ice in chunks of 75 pounds or 100 pounds and often had to go up steps to give it to people because that's what they used in their refrigerators, which was an ice box. Well, we always said that hauling that ice around really did him well later in his life because he was very, very strong. He and Bill were quite the competitors, but yet they were very loving brothers, and so most of the things they did together. And in the little town of Minden, they played a lot of baseball. Their competitive spirit, I think, came from the fact that they were so close in age. They both played football at Warrensburg, and neither of them had ever played football in high school because Minden was such a small high school, they had no football team. He was a great track athlete, and he loved that. And he was a runner all of his life. As a kid, I can remember when he didn't just get ready for spring training. He ran all the time. If he needed to go to town, he would run. If he needed to go someplace else, he ran all the time to keep himself in shape. But after he graduated, it was baseball. He really liked baseball. That was the love of his life. Probably not good enough to have made it in pro football at that time, but baseball, he loved it so much it was very difficult for him to give it up. Once he'd been in the majors, then he played in the minors and worked his way back down again, and then finally did some Van Johnson coaching in Brookfield, and then said that he was just tired of being the only person at our family reunion that wasn't a teacher, so then he went into teaching. His career in baseball professionally began a little bit, in the major leagues, began a little bit later in life. He was not a young rookie.
But as a rookie, Kennedy found success early when he pitched a no-hitter for the Chicago White Sox against the Cleveland Indians.
That was quite an accomplishment. And now it's not so unusual for people to pitch no-hitters, but then it was. And his no-hitter was the first no-hitter that had ever been pitched in Comiskey Park, which made it even a little more special. But he played 12 years, and he was on 2 all-star teams. One of those was with Lou Gehrig and with Bob Feller. And the all-star teams were very different then than they are now. There were only 11 members of the team, and now we have 2 or 3 players in every position. So to have been on 2 all-star teams was quite an honor for him. At one point, a gentleman who worked for the Columbia Public Schools told me that I never smiled as much as I did when somebody asked me about my dad. And I think that all my life I have been very proud of him. And even today, when I do something, I think of him. So his legacy still lives. One of the things, too, is that he was so involved in the Senior Olympics and the Show Me Games. At one point, he was the oldest participant in the games. He did the shot put and the discus and the javelin. And me and my brother and my children got to see some of that competitive spirit. And that was a real pleasure for us. And it was a pleasure for him that all of us could be there to watch him.
Born in Brunswick in 1941, Darrell Knowles played for 8 major league teams in 15 years. As the left-handed relief pitcher for the Oakland A's, he clinched the world title during the 1973 championship game against the New York Mets, pitching 6 1/3 innings without giving up an earned run and earning the save in Game 1 and Game 7. He's the first pitcher to appear in all 7 games of a World Series. The baseball field at the high school in Brunswick is named in his honor. Born in Keatsville at the turn of the century in 1900, Robert Calvin Hubbard helped the Green Bay Packers win 4 Super Bowls. He's considered one of the greatest tackles of all time. Then he spent 15 years as an umpire for the American League. He called 4 World Series and 3 All-Star games. He's the only person to ever be enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the National Baseball Hall of Fame. The Keatsville High School baseball field named in his honor.
Just steps from the Norfolk Southern Line sits the Rail Yard Steakhouse, a hot spot for locals and a destination for travelers from all corners. So Lori, tell us how you guys started the Rail Yard Steakhouse.
Well, my husband and I, we just wanted a business of our own, and he grew up in the restaurant business. His family had a bar, and a tavern, and a restaurant, and I always liked to cook. So we kind of decided that should be the business that we went into.
Tell us what's that like to get to come to work every day with your husband.
We've done that ever since we've been married. The place we worked before, we worked at the same place, so we were used to it. It's kind of nice having your other half that is always here to have your back.
You guys are located on right next to the railroad, so I imagine that had something to do with the naming. But why did you guys choose this location?
Well, I grew up in Brunswick. I graduated from Brunswick High School, and when we were looking for a location, we were told that this building was for sale, and they said, you know, you guys would probably really like that. It's got wood floors and the big wood posts and beams, and so we came down to look at it, walked in, and fell in love with the place. It just happened to sit 17 feet from the railroad. But when we bought it, it was basically one big room and 9 posts and all the wood floors and everything that you see today. We came in and we made some partitions, and we tried to do some of it to make it more intimate, like it wasn't just a big banquet hall and as soon as the door opens everybody turns to see who walks in. We wanted it to be a little more intimate than that. It was a long process, but we liked the outcome. So.
I understand that the decor that you have hanging around is some of yours and some of your mother's.
Right. My mother has painted her whole life. I mean, our family farmed. I was raised on a farm. That was what we did to make a living, but her passion was art. She studied art, painted her whole life. So yeah, a lot of the paintings around here are hers. The photography is mine, mainly wildlife and landscape and things, you know, rural, things that are close by.
Tell us about the menu.
Well, we are a steakhouse, and we didn't set out to be a steakhouse, but while we were working on this building, people weren't shy about just walking on in when we were working and wanting to know what we were doing, and everybody asked, are you going to serve steaks? Are you going to serve steaks? I think we better serve steaks. So that's kind of how that came about. Some of the other items, the chicken tenders, which are popular, those are just things that we've had during our travels. You know, you kind of like, boy, I really like that. We should do that.
And you're the chef.
I am a cook. I won't ever claim to be a chef. I am not schooled in the culinary arts, but I've always enjoyed cooking, and I guess I learned from my mom, who I watched as a kid growing up, and just by doing. And people will come up to pay and they'll say that it was great as always. And so that's one of the best compliments I guess we can get.
The musical adaptation of Mark Twain's book, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, was brought to the big screen in 1973 and featured a young Jodie Foster as Becky Thatcher. Many of the water scenes featuring Tom and Huck on the Missouri River were shot here at Dalton's Cutoff Lake. During banking hours, Mark Ramsey spends his days at a desk. But when he clocks out, his love of wildlife and nature inspires him. He's an amateur photographer that has seen his work published by Orscheln's, the Missouri Bankers Association, Missouri's Department of Conservation, and Missouri Life magazine.
Well, I've been raised in a rural area my whole life, and of course, hunting and fishing is a big deal out here in rural Chariton County. And so I've enjoyed the outdoors, and as I got older, then it became a little bit more important maybe just to have the experience to be outdoors than the actual hunting experience. So I started taking pictures as I went hunting, and I got to liking that pretty good, so I just started taking more and more pictures, and it actually extended the season. So if the season was over at the end of November, then I could still be taking pictures in January, February, March, April, all year round. And then it kind of evolved into sharing those experiences with other people, and I've got several people that kind of follow me on my Facebook page, and it's been a lot of fun.
Stay, baby, stay.
I didn't really start doing this till fairly late in life. I've only been doing it about 10 years. When I was younger and raising kids, the digital photography wasn't out there, and so I couldn't afford to take 500 pictures of film pictures and to have them developed and sent off and processed and all that, and then maybe get a half a dozen decent shots out of that. It just wasn't in my budget to do that. So when the digital photography came on, in the last 10, 15 years, and my kids got out of school and kind of the empty nest syndrome, I started looking for another hobby, something else to do, and I started taking pictures, and really liked it. And I can go out and take 500 pictures and keep the ones I want and delete the rest and continue on. So, but it's a lot of, I call it spray and pray, in a lot of cases, but you take a lot of pictures and you learn a lot, and that's kind of the way I've done it.
And much like hunting, finding the perfect location is important, and patience can be a virtue.
We manage our farm for wildlife, and I've got a blind that I go to. I love to go down there on a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday afternoon in the wintertime, and we provide food, and then the deer and turkey will come out of the timber and feed in the food plots. And sometimes that might be an hour to 2 hours. Sometimes you might get a shot just as soon as you get down there, and sometimes you might not get a shot at all. So I'd say the patience is a big thing, but probably the number one question I get asked, I've done several presentations of my pictures, and the first question that I get asked is, what would you recommend that we do? And my answer is always, take your camera with you. And so I bring my camera literally to work. If I'm going on a short trip into town, I throw it in the back. I have taken a lot of pictures. How many times have you been going down the road and thought, man, I really wish I had a camera with me right now? Well, I do. I do have my camera with me, and a lot of times I'll stop or turn around and go back and take the picture. I'm just doing this for a hobby, just to, for my enjoyment and others' enjoyment. So if it turns into a job, it might not be as much fun.
We hope you've enjoyed this short peek into the people, history, craftsmanship, and flavors of Chariton County. As we bring this episode to a close, let's take a final look at the art of Mark Ramsey. For everyone at KMOS TV, Missouri Life Magazine, and myself, thanks for watching. And tune in next time to spark your spirit of discovery and experience Missouri life. More information is available on social media or online at kmos.org. Production support is provided by Missouri Life Magazine. Missouri Life Magazine explores and celebrates the people, places, history, and destinations that make our state unique. Subscription information for Missouri Life Magazine can be found online at MissouriLife.com. And by viewers like you. Thank you.